Uh, I wanted to place an intro in, but didn't think what to do. So have this. Hello, everybody. Today I decided to remake my Scout tier list. I made a community post saying that I would remake the TF2 tier list because I think the videos are kind of shit and they deserve better. I've already done one. I'll probably link it up here, maybe in the description as well, if you want to go see it, but this is much better because the video quality is going to be much better, the editing is going to be better, and I've changed my opinions on some weapons. Okay, let's start off. Scattergun. It is an amazing weapon. It is basically a direct upgrade to the shotgun. Not by much. The only difference is that it deals much more damage at its maximum. The shotgun normally deals a maximum of 90 damage. The scattergun deals 105 or 104. I see a lot. Basically, it can one-shot beginner spies, which is kind of a big deal, but isn't the best thing in the world. Like, obviously, for one-shot light class, it'd be overpowered as all hell, but for what it is, S tier. The Force of Nature. This is a direct message to Limelord because he's gonna see this video 100%. My opinion has not changed at all. Yep, I knew the whole crowd would be me for that. I still think it is a direct downgrade to the Soda Popper. The only good thing is the self-knockback. I am putting this in B tier. I am being very generous. Oh, I should probably say what it does. Basically, it only has 2 shots. It has knockback on yourself when you're in the air and enemies. It deals much more... not much more. It deals more damage than the regular scattergun, but you have to be up close to get that more max damage. It doesn't really matter. The most that matters is its burst capabilities. Again, B tier. Shortstop. Time and time again, I will fight that the shortstop is just as good as the stock scattergun, at least DPS wise. The shove has completely tarnished the regular fire's reputation for no reason. Yes, the shove is completely defenseless, both literally and figuratively. But that doesn't mean the shortstop is bad. It is not. Okay, look, it doesn't deserve S tier, but it definitely deserves a strong A tier. It is really good, especially when paired with the Criticola, a weapon I will talk about later. The Soda Popper. Low-key, I don't think it deserves S tier anymore. Yes, I did say that it's basically a better fan in everything besides the hype meter, which is more of a side grade. I just think that the stock scattergun is much more consistent. And that's not saying that it's a bad weapon. It isn't, like, at all. It is, some people say it is like the second best scattergun, and I'm up to those arguments. But I don't think it's as good. With a babyface's blaster. When I first said this weapon is trash, I had a bunch of people spamming me in-game to try it. So I did. I did not like it. Like, look, I understand a scattergun is a scattergun, and the boost, more often than not, isn't that big of a deal whether you have it or not. Mostly it's that you can mitigate when you don't have it. So, you know what? C tier. That is much better than what I gave it last time. The backscatter. Unfortunately, my opinion on this has fallen. I did say I will defend this weapon tooth and nail. And I still defend it, just not tooth and nail anymore. I understand that it's outclassed. C tier. What it does is basically you can backshot people. I am not joking, except not in that type of backshot. You deal mini crits from the back is what I mean. I just think the accuracy penalty is a bit too much. Alright, the pistol. Low key, I think the winger is better. Not by much, but I think it's better. What the winger does is it deals more damage and get more jump height in exchange for having a little bit less than half of the clip. The clip penalty isn't that big of a deal because the damage makes up for it, and you just left then with the jump boost, which, even if you're running the atomizer or the soda popper, it is still great. So yeah, winger gets S tier. Pretty Boy's pocket pistol. My opinion hasn't changed a lot. It is fantastic at mid-range, don't get me wrong, but if you want to be a mid-range menace, just use the shortstop. And if you want to keep your consistency with the scattergun, then just use the cleaver. Yeah, it's a bit more inconsistent, but you're going to be much more of a mid-range menace with it. B tier. Speaking of, the Flying Guillotine. I think this is a strong A tier. It deals a lot of mid-range damage and has a short cooldown. It's just very, very hard to hit, even for a good scout. If, and I'll say this, if the Valve brings back the mini crit on long shot thing, then an argument can be made about it being S tier. But as long as that upside doesn't exist, I think it's pretty safe to say that it's staying in A tier. The Bonk Atomic Punch. This is another weapon I will fight tooth, not nail, just tooth. That is good. Scout really doesn't have any bad secondaries, even if some people say the Bonk is the worst, which... yes, but being the worst in something doesn't mean you're bad. What it does is when you drink it, you become invulnerable, but you're unable to fire your guns. It's basically a version of Spy's Cloak, but for Scout. You give up the ability to not be seen entirely, to not being able to take or inflict damage. If you use it smart, it's actually really good. But if you use it like an idiot, you're gonna get punished. B tier. Criticola. What it does is when you drink it, you get guaranteed mini crits for 8 seconds? I don't remember. You get guaranteed mini crits is the thing. However, after you fire your first shot, you become marked for death, depending on how many shots you fire. Marked for death means that every attack you take is mini crits. Mini crits have two effects. One, they deal 35% more damage than any regular attack. For most scatterguns, this means that they deal about 140-ish damage, one-shotting light classes and just barely being unable to one-shot medics. And this actually pairs really well with the fan, and this is a point where I'll give the fan genuine credit. Because paired with the Criticola, it can one-shot medics. And that is a really niche but amazing use case. And that is the one thing that might have an argument for the fan being A tier. Anyways, I rambled about the fan way too long again. Criticola gets A tier. The only reason it's not S is because you're giving up mid-range damage. The Mad Milk. What it does, similar to Girardi, it's a jar that you throw at people. The only difference being the effect. Instead of having the enemy take mini crits, they have a weird effect similar to the conch, where some damage you deal to them is returned as health to you. It's about 60%. So for example, if you dealt 100 damage to somebody, that's 60 health you're gaining back, though it cannot overheal you. This is an amazing team support weapon. And it's so good that a lot of comp bans it because it's just a free win for the mid-fight. This goes into S tier. The only downside is that you give up mid-range damage. Let's continue. The bat, F tier. There is a difference between the bat and most stock melees, and it's that you swing about twice as fast, but instead of 65, you deal 35 damage. That is still enough to 4-shot light classes, but I'm pretty sure the DPS is basically identical. I think the one thing it has over other stock melees is that it kills kunai spies much faster because it deals exactly 70 damage. Other than that though, yeah, F tier. The Sandman. I'll place this in D tier. I think it's good enough for what it is. You lose 15 health, which the only threshold that passes that can be one-shot by the rocket launcher, the black box, I don't think, and the cow mangler. Of course the direct hit, but Scout always dies to that regardless. Am I missing something? No, I don't think that. Yeah, so basically, more rocket launcher from Soldier. It isn't the biggest deal ever, especially when compared to the other weapon I'll talk about in a jiffy. The upside is you get a ball, and when you hit somebody with it, depending on how far you hit them, they get slowed down. Which is good when paired with the sword stop, don't get me wrong. But it's like, not that... It's not that interesting or that big of an upside to justify it getting anywhere above a D tier. I believe it is better than the bat, but it's not the best melee you could run. Anyways, the Candy Cane. On kill, you get a small health pack which restores 25% of your health. I'm stupid. Not 25%, 20% of your health, which is 25 health for Scout. But it also can heal other allies and enemies. Be careful with that. Though the downside is you take 25% more damage from explosions. This means you can be one-shot by a lot of soldiers' rocket launchers. I'm not doing the math. The more important thing is you can be one-shot by all of Demo's grenade launchers. That is a big downside, especially considering how Scout counters Demo, but with this, I believe the matchup is equal because the Demo can kill you in one shot if they're good enough. That is a big deal. So yeah, I'm between D and E tier, honestly. Maybe C. No, I'm gonna place in D tier. The Boston Basher, my favorite sounding rod. Who said that? Okay, bad joke. Moving on. What it does is our favorite stat on hit for 8 seconds. On bleed. Fuck! On hit, bleed for 8 seconds. Nah. Okay, that is the actual stat on hit, bleed for 8 seconds. The enemy bleeds for 8 seconds, which deals about 64 damage paired with 35. That's about 90 damage, I believe. But if you fuck up and miss, like a complete miss, you just hit the air, you make yourself bleed. You don't take the 35 damage though, but that's still 64 damage, assuming you don't heal. C tier. Also, I know I'm not funny. The Sun on a Stick. This is the only weapon I'm probably placing in E tier. And it's because of one thing. It is borderline a direct upgrade to the bat, but if the direct upgrade didn't matter at all. What it does is you crit people that are on fire, and you also take less damage from fire. That includes Pyro's M1 and Afterburn, I believe, as well as flares. The second stat doesn't really matter. The first one doesn't really matter. The downside is less damage. Who cares? E tier. The Fan of War. I low-key think this is underrated. Ignoring its use case in MVM because I'm basing this off of PvP, it's decent, and Scout's melees are not in the greatest position. These are borderline the only two good melees. So yeah, doesn't really matter. What it does is it deals basically no damage, but doesn't really matter because when you hit somebody, they get marked for death for an insanely long time. And I mean insanely long. Being 14 or 15, I don't remember, seconds. That is a century and a half. Remember, mini crits, ignore fall off, and you deal 35% more damage to that person. And unlike the critical, this can be spammed, albeit you have to hit somebody with your melee, which even for Scout isn't the easiest thing in the world. Still though, E tier. Oh yeah, it also has the Bushwhacker effect where every mini crit becomes a crit, but because it deals so little damage, it only deals 27 per swing, I believe, which is still less than the Atomizer. Nice transition, huh? No? Alright. What this does is it gives you a triple jump. And it also has a sort of market garden-like effect where if you hit somebody while you're in the middle of the air, you deal mini crit damage, which makes it go from 30 to 40 damage. Still not enough to 3-shot light classes as it's 120 versus 125. But it can work sometimes. I mean, you're not really using this thing for damage though. Oh, speaking of, the reason it only deals 40 and not however much 35 damage times 0. Divided by 0.35 would be, I don't know, I don't do math, is because it has a slight damage debuff and also deploy slower, which is really the main downside. And until it is fully deployed, you cannot triple jump. So yeah, whoops. So yeah, this goes into A tier. And the Rap Assassin. It's similar to Sandman in the way that you throw a projectile. The only difference is the projectile and the recharge time being much faster. It deals bleed on hit. It's a lighter version of the Flying Guillotine, and if you're using something like the Winger or the Soda Popper, I'd say you should probably use this over the Atomizer. Still though, the projectile is minuscule, and even then it doesn't deal that much damage. So like C tier. Anyways, I think this will be it. I'll go look at the previous video and I'll throw a comparison here to see how my opinions have changed. Just note that I didn't have E tier back then, so I don't know, do with that what you will. And I want to use this as a way to come back to the Scout main community, because I think my last tier list had me shunned from it. Or not, I don't know. I'll probably still get shunned because I put the Force of Nature in B tier. Bye!
Wow.